The deadliest war of the entire 19th century didn't happen in Europe or in America. It killed more people than the First World War. And it began with one man, a village schoolteacher who became convinced he was the younger brother of Jesus Christ. His name was Hong Xiuquan. To understand how a failed student nearly toppled an empire, we have to begin with the system that ruled his entire world. By the time it was over, entire provinces would stand empty. But it all started with a sickness and a dream that no one believed. In 1814, Hong was born into a poor Hakka farming family in southern China. He was clever, the pride of his village, and everyone assumed he would pass the great exams and become an imperial official. In imperial China, those exams were everything. Pass, and your whole family rose into the ruling elite for generations. Fail, and years of relentless study counted for nothing. The pass rate was merciless, often well under 1%. Hong traveled to the great city of Guangzhou, sat the examination, and failed. So he studied harder. He returned. He failed again, and then again. After his third failure, in 1837, something inside him broke. Exhausted and humiliated, Hong collapsed into a fever that would rage for days. And in the grip of that fever, he saw something that would one day cost tens of millions of lives. Hong later described being carried up into a radiant palace in heaven. There, a golden bearded old man handed him a sword and wept that the world below had been overrun by demons. A middle-aged man he called his elder brother fought at his side, driving the demons out. Then Hong woke, and for years the strange dream meant nothing to him. Until, years later, he finally read a Christian pamphlet a street missionary had once pressed into his hands, and suddenly it made sense to him. The old man was God. The elder brother was Jesus, which meant that he, Hong Xiuquan, was God's second son, the younger brother of Jesus, sent to cleanse China of its demons. And to Hong, the identity of those demons was obvious: the Manchu Qing dynasty that ruled over China. His delusion had become a mission. He began to preach. He smashed temple idols, baptized his converts, and gathered up the poor, the desperate, and the furious. He called his followers the God-worshipping society. And in the impoverished South, where famine, corruption, and ethnic hatred festered, his message spread like wildfire. By 1850, they numbered in the tens of thousands. The Qing sent soldiers to crush them. It did not work. In 1851, Hong declared open rebellion and proclaimed a brand new state, the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom, the Kingdom of Great Peace. The bitter irony of that name would, in time, become almost unbearable. His armies drove north, swelling into the hundreds of thousands. City after city fell before them. The Qing dynasty, rotten with corruption, reeled. And in 1853, they seized one of China's greatest cities, Nanjing, and made it their capital, renaming it Tianjin, the heavenly capital. For a time, Hong ruled perhaps a third of China and some 30 million people. And he set out to build something genuinely radical. The Taiping banned opium, alcohol, gambling, and the crippling practice of foot binding. They declared men and women equal, and even opened official examinations to women, something unheard of in imperial China. Land was to be shared in common. To his followers, Hong was no mere warlord. He was a living prophet, building heaven on earth. But behind the high palace walls, The heavenly king was drifting away from the world, and from reason itself. He withdrew into his palace, issued rambling religious decrees, and left the real governing to the rival kings beneath him. And those kings began to turn on one another. In 1856, it detonated. In what became known as the Tianjin incident, the Taiping's own leaders slaughtered each other in a paranoid bloodbath. Tens of thousands died in the capital alone. The movement never recovered its unity again. And now, at last, its enemies were getting organized. Regional Chinese armies loyal to the dynasty rebuilt themselves into disciplined fighting forces. And Western powers, craving stability for their trade, threw their weight behind the Qing. Slowly and brutally, the heavenly kingdom was strangled. City by city, the Taiping were driven back toward Nanjing. By 1864, Nanjing was surrounded and starving, and Xiuquan, the self-proclaimed brother of Jesus, refused to flee. He told his people that God himself would defend the city. In June 1864, he died inside his own palace, reportedly after eating wild weeds from the garden as the last food ran out. Weeks later, the city fell. The victorious armies showed almost no mercy. When the smoke finally cleared, the deadliest civil war in human history had killed an estimated 20 to 30 million people, and some historians believe far more. A death toll rivaling the whole of the First World War. And in the West, it is barely remembered. One failed exam, one fever dream, and an empire brought to the brink of collapse. If a single delusion could do all of this, what else has history quietly buried? Subscribe, and we'll keep digging it back up.